Hi everyone, and welcome back to Work Wired with Rich, the show where we get into the honest, unfiltered side of what it really takes to make work, well, work. I'm Richard Farmer, your host for an Asia Managing Director at CT. These days, everyone's talking about AI, what's changing and what it might replace next. But there's a side of the conversation we don't talk about enough. If AI isn't changing how we work, how is it changing what we want to learn and how we learn? Across Asia Pacific, millions of people are hitting play on courses every single day, from leadership to tech to creativity to communication. But what's really trending? What are people curious about right now? What do they want to learn? And what does it say about the skills that will actually matter over the next few years? Now, I've got the perfect guest to dig into that and give us the real insights and the lowdown of how things are really changing in the learning space across Asia. Now, the person with me today is Georgina. She leads an amazing sales team across APAC at LinkedIn. She's got the mix of energy, humor, and real world perspective, and will make every conversation really feel fresh today, even though it's a Friday afternoon, Georgina. And I'm the only person that's standing between Georgina and a glass of rosé on a Friday afternoon. And Georgina has spent over 15 years in this space, helping companies find, grow, and keep their best people. Now she's really right at the heart of but not just AI, but skills and how businesses can learn, but also make sure they're engaging and training their talent. So welcome, Georgina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. This is a privilege.
No.
First podcast, so be kind.
Oh, we will be kind, no problem. We might ask some pointy questions, but Georgina, it's always good to know the person that's on the show. So just tell us about yourself and a bit of an introduction, who you are and how you got to where you are.
For sure. Thank you. So, Georgina, I'm based in Singapore, but I am very Australian, as I'm sure you can tell. So I'm from Geelong, which is a bit of a dirty subject at the moment because obviously the Geelong Cats lost to the Brisbane Lions like 2 weeks ago. And yes, I've been at LinkedIn for 13 years now across both hiring solutions in Australia as well as heading up LinkedIn Learning for APAC now for about the past 7 years. I have a 10-year-old boy, Billy, who you know well. He's friends of yours. 3, and yeah, I love living in Singapore. I'm an investor in a few of the Revel gyms as well, and that's about me.
Well, my apologies for the results of the AFL. I thought you'd actually win, but the Brisbane was a bit too good on the day. And I think it's great, from someone that has a family, but also wellness, leadership, and also I think training and ongoing learning, it all comes together as one. So I think the perfect package for today's questions. So let's dive straight in. So Georgina, you've got a unique view of the region. You've worked across APAC, as you said. You've been with LinkedIn 13 years, 15 years in the region, originally from recruitment, if I'm not mistaken.
I had 8 years at Hayes, and actually before that I was in public relations and marketing, and I even worked with paparazzi at one point in London, which is crazy. So a very mixed bag of careers, which actually why this space really interests me because of the adoption of needing to be quite agile and picking up skills as well.
Yeah, and I think, you look at people that have those recruitment skills, it's kind of PR, relations, that go perfect into how to manage candidates, talk to people, engage with people, now into skills and learning and sales. So, it's all linked. But yeah, so to back to the question, so you have a unique view of the region and seeing what people in APAC are actually learning. So what's catching your eye right now? Any surprises in what's trending? Is there anything that's particularly high on the agenda?
When I think about the customers that we meet with on a daily basis, AI upskilling is very front and center and keeping up with those skills. And if I think about like the skills that people are adding to their profiles, I was actually talking to a customer earlier. I think large language models, we've seen an increase of over 5,000%. I also think Gen AI, we've seen an increase over about 3,000%. That's people adding those skills to their profiles. So definitely AI is top of mind for customers, but also our members on LinkedIn.com. On the flip of that, we talk a lot about the human skills and the agility to also think holistically across both AI skills and human skills. And I would call out that with AI skills, the increase on non-technical people. So we've seen about 140% increase in technical people adding AI skills to their profile. But on the flip of that, non-technical people adding AI skills to their profiles is at 160%. And I think that's really interesting space when we think about what should someone in HR be learning about AI and upskilling on compared to a technical role? There's a real hunger for members, but also for our customers to make sure that they're upskilling their employees across all functions as well as the technical side of things.
Yes, that's very interesting. So technical people are really paying a lot of attention on AI and how to build their skill sets, which I think that's it. I think people are actually, it's a fear factor as well. It's the first time people are going, I need to learn this. I don't know what it is. And probably even add to the question, you might have the answer. In the demographic, I was just thinking, have you seen anything around, I suppose, between either male or female in terms of the learning, or also ages? Like, is there a particular, do you see any demographics on that from your data points?
We can't see that from a data point, but there's some of our customers are running really cool programs with Gen Zs, using them to actually upskill the millennials and the Gen Xs. So
So like reverse mentoring.
reverse mentoring, which where it's done really well is doing incredibly well. So there's definitely merit in that. I went to a debate the other day for a customer that did like a generation debate, and it had the 3 different generations debating, and one of the subjects came up was AI, and the Gen Zs just kind of blew it away. But you even think about your kids. I mean, my son Billy gets onto Copilot. He's doing a migration. Bish, bash, bosh. Within 10 minutes, he's done an entire PowerPoint deck with the help of Copilot. So I think we have to acknowledge that they're going to pick up those skills much faster. And we're probably the ones that are the laggers, is what I'm seeing, but not from a data perspective, just from what I'm observing.
Yeah, I think some people are like, want to continue the way it was. I think some people embrace change. I also think it's down to learning styles. As you know, like being dyslexic, and also my children have like suffering from the same thing. Not suffering is probably the wrong word, but having that AI actually levels the playing field, because it's about asking questions. It's the prompts that they need it. But we are seeing more and more, focus on just people actually want understanding how it works. Like, how is it actually running? And what is a what is an agent? What is LLM? It's actually foundational skills people are learning as well.
Yeah. And I would say on that as well, like when you talk about being dyslexic, and I'm dyslexic as well, there's a whole pool of thought, and Adam Grant leads a lot of this thinking as well around the studies of the retention as well. I'm getting a lot of emails that are clearly AI written to me.
Yeah.
One, I find it a little bit generic, but secondly, when someone writes an email, actually writes something, the retention of that data and those points is just much higher. So I think we're going to get to a point where maybe some of that will be taken back, but I'm interested to see what that looks like as well.
Yeah, and I suppose going a bit off topic here, but I'm going to ask the question because it was pitched to me as a question at a panel discussion this week, and they asked, where does AI fit in as your sales leader? Where does AI fit in a interview process? Like, there's so many resumes now are written by AI, quotes are written by AI. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, you can use LinkedIn to see their actual experience and validate it because it's a public platform. But I think that should come out in the interview process as well. If you're a good interviewer, and you and I both come from recruitment and really do the STAR model, actually get into the scenario and actually the outcome of that scenario, I think you pick that up pretty quickly. I would say, though, one of the questions I now ask is, what was the last thing that person did on AI, to make sure that they've got that curious nature? Because I think if someone's not being curious about AI, there's probably a missing link to how they're going to learn and be agile.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and a very great question. Yeah, what was the last thing you did in AI? I don't know what mine would be. Probably looking at some kind of holiday planning. Okay. Well, great answer to the first few questions. Going into the next piece, and I suppose this is down to what you're seeing in the market. But if you could pick one skill or course that anyone should make time for this year, the one that will probably really make a difference to that individual or even to their company, what would that be?
Just a basic AI course in prompting.
Yeah.
Because I think people are using ChatGPT or Copilot like Google, and it's not. And, that's something I'm still learning as well. There's lots of frameworks around how to prompt and how to ask questions. But I'd say the ability to prompt is a really good starting point for anyone across any function, And that's definitely the right start. There's the really cool stories as well. Like if I think of even at LinkedIn, we empower everyone to upskill in AI. We now give credit to all of our employees to use for AI programs or upskilling. And we're hearing stories of people that don't work in technical jobs that are upskilling on things like Copilot Studio or different parts and actually creating these like really cool AI tools like executive briefing documents for customers or ROI calculators. So there's different levels, but if you're going to start at a base level, I'd say learning how to prompt is a good start.
I think that's a great start. Learning how to prompt. You heard it here first. But do it before the end of the year. It's your Christmas present to yourself. So,
Learning license.
yeah, and a LinkedIn learning license. Yeah. If you need it, then why not? And I suppose, time is, now to obviously keep on learning. I think the one thing I've seen in businesses is they often focus on many, they always want looking at revenue, but they're often looking about, giving back that time to individuals, right, to learn, which will actually enhance their business. So, so in that, what advice have you got for individuals? Everyone's always busy in this moment in time. So, they think time's the biggest barrier. I haven't got time to do a course and do that. So how do you make time to learn and to use the platform and to really also probably how will you advise leaders to give time back to their staff to do this?
Yeah, and it is a really tricky subject. And even talking to all our customers, 7 years in this role, it's always activation and engagement. They know building a culture of learning is really important, but how do you empower your people to want to learn? So even individually for me, can I sit down in front of a laptop and watch a LinkedIn learning course? No, it's not in my nature. Now I know some people that love that, but for me, I will download LinkedIn learning courses audio only often, and I'll actually do it when I'm walking because I love podcasts and it's very similar to that. So I think everyone, first of all, needs to know their own learning style and not like try and take on, I'm going to do this 3-hour LinkedIn learning course this week. I try and think about learning in like 2 or 3 minutes a day. Like, what am I going to ask Copilot to do today that might be something that I haven't asked? And maybe what's the 2-minute LinkedIn learning video I'm going to do prior to asking Copilot to do something so I've got the knowledge to do it. But really bite-sized is super important. One of the things we know about our learners is how much more interactive they need to be on the platform. So we now have nano learning, which is the TikTok version of LinkedIn learning, which is really short off videos. We've got the daily learn. Again, it's like a 2-minute video. So I think if you think of it literally as 2 minutes, when you go to the gym, you say to yourself, I'm going to do an hour. And you think, I can't do all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. And you think, actually, if I just go do 7 minutes on the treadmill and then it ends up being 30, 35 minutes, you kind of need that similar mentality. Brian Walensky, the CEO of LinkedIn, talks about learning how to learn. And I think that's more important than ever. And then from a leadership perspective, it really needs to start at the top. You need to give the space to your employees and your leaders to learn. Now, what that looks like is going to depend on companies, but showing them that you're investing in yourself in learning is really important, and that you're sharing courses that might be relevant to them, that you've done the course, maybe you're giving a little bit of a synopsis on that course and why you liked it. But showing them if you've got the time to learn, then they've definitely got the time to learn and why it's important. And then making space. There's, some teams and some customers might do 2 hours of learning on a Friday together and then come together and talk about it. So you do have to give the space, but also show that you are doing it yourself. Definitely starts from the top.
Yeah, I think it is down to the top, and I think it really resonates on how you learn. There's things that, everything from Blink List, for example, who's a synopsis of books, all the way through to, your podcasts. One of the reasons that this pod is short is because we wanted something bite-sized that people can actually listen to and move away, rather than, can everyone have 3 hours to listen to a podcast? Joe Rogan, yeah, it's particularly long.
I actually throw my phone down when I see Joe Rogan interview someone I really like and it's 3 hours, and I'm like, you're such a man. Only a man for 3 hour podcasts.
But have you seen companies actually having a curriculum, something that people have to train and they have to do? I mean, obviously you have security compliance, there's some training there, but have you seen any successes around that, a bit more structure in their learning programs?
So many. And actually, I do think if a customer comes on board with LinkedIn Learning or any digital learning platform, there should be push at the start to create that culture of learning. So just in the back of customer calls I've been on this week, some customers mandate 2 hours of learning a year. Not a lot, but it's, they can't get exceeded on their appraisal if they haven't done 2 hours of LinkedIn Learning a year. We've got an AI upskilling framework, which is, sort of beginner to technical across like all functions, HR, marketing, sales, etc. Some companies have mandated the beginner and intermediate AI LinkedIn Learning paths on that, within 2 months because they wanted their entire employee and organization to be upskilled on AI to a certain level. And they called it like bronze, silver, and gold. So definitely making it part of your appraisals, mandating it, because I think when people start to do it, it's not compliance training. It's kind of enjoyable. It's actually, the way we make our videos is fun. Yeah. So then there's a innate ability, if they've done it for 2 months or whatever, they've put away those hours, they've done it, and they see it as being more feasible for the future to actually do those learning hours.
Yeah, I love that. And I think sometimes, especially, and this leads to my next question around APAC and the different cultures, having more structure or something where people actually get acknowledged for doing it is actually a big driver for people. Which leads into the question, you obviously led big teams across APAC. So when it comes to encouraging your people, which is, I suppose we're looking for some leadership advice, encouraging them to keep learning and to keep doing things. If it's not a curriculum, how do you actually get them to kind of keep encouraging your team?
Firstly, even when I interview, and I talked about that AI question, but particularly in, my team specialize in LinkedIn Learning for our customers, they've got to like learning. It sounds pretty simple, but I will ask questions to understand, like, yes, what was the last thing they used AI for, but what was the last thing they learned? What was the last book they read? I couldn't even care if it's like the romance, fairy, romantic fiction novels. Just kind of
That's one I did.
Yeah. So you've used AI for holidays, and then you're reading the smutty fairy books.
Of course, yes.
You're employed.
Yay, welcome to LinkedIn.
But I think that ability to read or to learn is really important to me. Secondly, I think it's sharing a lot. There's a bit of FOMO when it comes to, also in APAC, is a bit of hierarchy and wanting to show that, you're doing good stuff and you're learning and you're investing yourself. And that's probably quite APAC centric. I see it differently maybe in Australia compared to other Asia regions. But I think if I'm showing that I've done a LinkedIn Learning course, if my leaders across all of APAC are showing that they're investing in themselves, that really helps boost to that. And look, a lot of my managers will also give out a LinkedIn Learning course before their team meetings. And then they'll say, we're going to discuss this LinkedIn Learning course in our next team meeting. That's incredibly effective. And the other one is in one-on-ones, my managers will say, you've got that really tough negotiation coming out or that keynote speech. Here's a LinkedIn Learning course that I'm going to give to you to do. And they'll generally do it because they're really glad of the investment in what they're offering as well.
That's some really great ideas there. I think giving the people the advice, but also, actually giving them something to go away and process so they can put it into their own ways as well. Because what we also see across APAC is there's different learning styles to different cultures, right? How even schooling's done differently. People though sometimes want the right answer, where actually what I see across APAC, have many sales teams, is the soft skills learning is often the piece that's missing. Yeah, the data, the being able to understand the strategy, but it's actually how, some of those leadership skills or management skills or even conversational skills is the pieces that people really want to work on. And that's sometimes around the confidence of them wanting to work on them themselves as well. It's definitely a key piece. And I suppose from a LinkedIn Learning perspective, and this again kind of goes a bit broader. So you're seeing internally with your teams, you can give them advice and so forth in terms of they can look at a program before they have a meeting and so forth. But how do they navigate through the whole system? Where do they find all the information? Is that quite easy to do on LinkedIn Learning?
Well, now it is, Rich. I feel like you've lined me up for a sales question, and I'm going to really take it.
As well.
we launched Career Hub 10 days ago, which is amazing. So the platform's not a content platform anymore. It's a career development platform. So you can set like career goals, which will then bring up all the learning that's relevant to that, whether that's mastering role, whether that's wanting to move internally or whatever that looks like. We've also got career pathways. So when I click on that, it'll know my profile, it'll know I'm a director, my industry, and it'll offer 3 or 4 different pathways where I can pivot into a different career, where I could do mastering roles. So it might say your skills overlap a product marketing manager. Here are the other skills you would need to be a product marketing manager. And then it would bring me up a LinkedIn learning path of various courses so that I then had the skills to be a product marketing manager. So that's all like what we've launched in the last 10 days in our talent architecture.
Wow. God.
And then on the flip of that, what we've always had is the Netflix experience of learning, because it's connected to my profile. Just like, I would say Netflix knows I like to watch really cheesy romantic movies. LinkedIn Learning knows what I'm interested in and will surface up those courses because it knows who I am.
Yeah. So update your profile, make sure you know how you can learn. But I think that's fantastic in terms of, people want to apply for new jobs, look at different things. We said this is some of the skill gaps you'd need to do this. That's great. Great piece of new tech. That's awesome. So, we've talked about kind of the team, we've talked about the wider scale of like learning programs. But what about you? What's a course that you've done recently that's really stuck with you? And something made you rethink about something you want to do different or lead and grow your team?
So one of my hobbies is to write. So I've written a book, but everyone's like, is it published? I'm like, no, it's not. It needs like 10 more rewrites, but I like writing. But one of the courses that I love was AI for creativity. And what it does, it actually gives you the prompts. So it gave me this really cool prompt to say, give me the start of a story that is a romantic novel, And then, so it gives me that prompt. I then write the next 500 words of his story, or 1,000 words, or 2,000 words. And then there's another prompt that gives me feedback on what I've written based on. Yeah, so it's like, it's really powerful in the sense that like that line was grey. I don't know what you meant by that. That had no continuity. I liked how you built that character out. So it's a really fun, like I think if you're a creator, as a writer, I always get told you just have to sit down and write 500 words a day. And sometimes that's incredibly hard to get going. So you journal and there's other things you do. But for me, I was like, wow, this is like some really cool prompts that I can now just put in for the 10 minutes of my writing hour every day to kind of give me that creative buzz and to give me some ideas so that then for the next 50 minutes, I've got the creative outlet. So that's been really
fantastic. So the book will be published. So that's for the next podcast, is it? To discuss your bestseller?
It's about a Singapore expat woman dating.
I wonder who well, I mean, I think that's a how-to guide from that perspective. I've always I love writing myself, and always thought like had some great ideas for books over the time, and I've always I think it's fantastic that you've gone and done that, like actually follow that passion. But I haven't even thought about using AI. I have for stories, and I actually helped Freddie on some of those. He's my son. But really analyzing the creativity, because the bit I would struggle with is actually the structure. But not the kind of the story, the ideas and so forth, have a very like that creativity comes. But I think that's great. So like, learning in your own time is not just for work, right? It's also for yourself, it's for your brain, things that you just want to learn about in terms of that, anything from music all the way through.
Yeah, and I was going to say just on that, like the stats around, if you really dig deep, the stats around, even if I'm learning and it's got nothing to do with my work, I am more productive at work. And I can't remember the data points, but because I'm learning, I'm motivated and I'm more productive. And just on the writing thing, I've always got 2 things I tell people is get a separate laptop from your work laptop. You get kind of either separate working area or do your writing from a different space to where you work, and just start by trying to do 500 words a day. And that's how I started. And
Wow, so it must be a big book. It must be, many pages.
Words, 30,000 words, just put it out there.
Okay, that's a lot. And And what do you feel in terms of and this is another thing, technology around writing, because yeah, I mean, for someone who's dyslexic like myself, writing sometimes it's not actually the writing that I would put me in a feeling of I suppose not terror but fear. It'd always be how it was judged, because you have a kind of thing about, so even an AI, like you saying about an AI checking it would frustrate me, because I'm like, no, it's right. So but what about like using dictation in that? Because a lot of people now talk to like speech to text. Have you had any experience with that? Is that something that LinkedIn Learning supports as well?
I actually don't know. It's not something I do a lot of, even in like the latest shows like Sex and the City. And I was watching a show the other day, and they do the old speech to text. That's foreign to me. I don't do it, but I don't know, because one of the things we have in LinkedIn Learning is you do a LinkedIn Learning course, and on the side now is an AI chat, so you can be chatting to the AI, asking questions about what you're learning. But I just don't know if that's voice to text. But it's not something I've seen of a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because I was interviewed by a journalist the other day, and they obviously just had the mic based on the camera. And I was also I read something around Kevin Hart, and he said he wrote his whole book basically dictation. He said I just spoke to it, and then it goes through and it gets created. He said because he said, "Oh, I can't write. I left school when I was 14. Like I can't, like it's not me." But also Jamie Oliver, who's a
Yeah.
dyslexic program, and like he has trouble reading, so he's like, yeah, but he's the second best author in the UK.
I mean, that where there's a will, there was a way. I remember someone read my book. Actually, I had a book coach, and I know I've gone a bit off topic, but he said, I've taken into your account you're dyslexic. So I'm going to take out all the grammar and the error, like the stuff that's clearly from a dyslexic brain. Let's not focus on that first. Let's focus on the structure and the story, and then let an editor fix that up. Do you know what I mean? Like this,
Yeah, I mean,
that that's their job.
yeah, exactly. You don't want to put them out of work. I mean, grammar, full stops. You don't need them. That's what I say.
Sally Rooney, who's a writer, has never used them. So I'm like, if she's made it, she's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so some of the yeah, you can tell with some of the books that have been put out there. But yeah, oh, but I can't wait to read it. But that kind of goes on. I suppose you've mentioned something really poignant there. I just thought the productivity around, if you have interests that are outside of work that you're passionate about, it really helps you at work, right? Because it's not the only reason you're there. But what other kind of human skills have you seen that like becoming more valuable? What are people talking about? Because there is a fear around AI. I think there's a people are getting also kind of good, like drowning in AI and platforms and so forth. So what about the human side, and what are the skills that we can do?
Yeah, I mean, I use this stat all the time, but it blows my mind. First of all, when I think about the fear of AI, 100 years ago, 90% of the workforce were farmers. And now that sits at 2%. So we're all in jobs that we didn't even know would exist. So I think that's a really good starting point to know that we'll all be okay. There will be jobs for us. And I use the Soul Cycle example of like, who knew even 10 years ago that I would pay $35 to sit on a bicycle that's not moving in a room with sweaty people with loud music playing. Like, that's just one example of something we never thought we'd do, right?
Yeah.
So I think from a human skills perspective, and, we've done a lot of research, and executives are really quick to point out communication, leadership, agility, project management, design thinking. They're a lot of our top people skills that cannot be replaced with AI. And when I think about AI, I think about it amplifying those human skills more. So that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to come to the surface, is that AI is going to start to automate a lot of these things, and they're the quality. So if you're a business analyst and you're really, really good at Python, but you're not good at leading a team, or you're terrible at communication, that's what's really going to surface as AI starts to automate a lot of that Python work.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. We're also talking about like kind of, storytelling is one of the key skills that
Yeah.
AI can't do. Like as you were saying about writing, right? The original story, right? If it's something that's to your heart, or a story that's, some of the great books, from A Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, right? You can't write that unless it's coming out of your brain because of the twists and the turns of the book, or the story. So I think that's key. But also, you've worked in talent for 15 years. One thing that we've been looking at, and from a candidate experience at CXC and also the individuals, is AI will take a lot of these automated skills, the compliance, some of the onboarding, but actually the candidate experience is still going to be really key. The humanization of, like you mentioned, interviews a few times. There was a really interesting article in the Wall Street Journal saying the face-to-face interview is back because they want to actually make sure it is a real person. Like, how much can AI do that? So, what have you seen, I suppose, in the with this AI automation, especially with your experience in the talent space? But what do you think, there will be evolving in that kind of humanization part?
Yeah, so it's people like we've launched hiring assistant recently as well, and that will automate a lot of those pesky tasks that the talent acquisition team would have to do around screening and setting up appointments. But you still need that face-to-face interaction, one, to build your employee value proposition, and be able to sell the company, and that storytelling you just mentioned really comes into that as well. And secondly, also from a talent management or recruitment perspective, how are you building those relationships with either clients or stakeholders internally at an organization? It gives you more time to do that. And we know from the research we've done that recruiters have always wanted more time for that. They want more time to spend with their clients and their stakeholders and their candidates. So what I think will happen is the candidate experience become better, the stakeholder experience and the client experience become a lot better as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's also what people need. People are looking at how they'll find the talent, keep the talent engaged, the alumni of their companies. If you don't have that human factor, that's going to be can be different. Um, so on that side, like, so we've kind of covered, the talent space, obviously the interview process, how we can learn differently. What about some advice for leaders? So you've worked with leaders all over the region, obviously probably advising them on their like learning platforms. One of the things I've always seen, which used to kind of make me laugh when I was in the L&D space and building out sales-based training, often the leaders talk about my team needs all this. Often you'd sit there going, I think the only person that needs this is actually you. From that perspective, on that kind of tangent, like, well, where do you think, the leaders, I suppose, when you look at people today, like, how do you think that really separates the people who's going to thrive and the people that are going to get stuck? Where do you think they should be focusing on as a leader?
Firstly, as a leader, that's when I talk to customers, that community of leadership is where they're investing a lot of time. And I think that's incredibly important because in a lot of organizations, you are promoting individual contributors because they've done well into leadership roles, and they may not necessarily have the right leadership skills, which then causes attrition. It causes not a great culture. So I think investing in your leaders is absolutely crucial. And then I think it's being incredibly prescriptive in what you want your team and individuals to learn, because there is everything, out there right now, and there's so much noise around it. I always say, like, what's going to make your boat go faster? I talk about it on like just generally like what should a rec or a manager focus on. We need to be prescriptive in these types of times, because if we're not prescriptive and we don't give clarity, they could get to Friday 5 p.m. and have their rosé and not have achieved a single thing that week because they're so confused and they're spending a lot of time doing nothing. So I think it's how, as a leader, can you be really prescriptive and give so much clarity to your reps and managers around where they should be spending their time, what they should be learning.
I think that's a great advice. And I'd probably take on my own shoulders there into sometimes you have those weeks where you're like, I've been so busy, so stressed, but what did I achieve this week? I think being prescriptive on learning as well, because if you're not, and you're not finding the gap in your business and the business lead you need to push forward, you can have people that start learning and going on a tangent and want to apply something that doesn't fit the organization. Like, I've learned something new, let's go and do it. But I think it's got to come top down as well. We at CXC, we've done a lot around the leadership side, a lot around strategy. I think there's a space, on those day-to-day tasks to start sharpening people's skills. I would say in sales, one of the things is people think you're good at sales. Well, it should be like a sport. Like if you play a sport, people practice all the time. Like they want to keep getting better and better, like your golf swing, right? But they just go, now I'm trained, I know what to do now. It's not, because it's changing. And how people buy now, which you probably see every day, has completely changed as well.
The buyer's grown substantially, you know, maybe, well, I don't know, 3 or 4 to 11 or 12.
Yeah.
It's a different skill set completely. Even if I think of LinkedIn, I've gone from talking about content or hiring to talking about what are their tech stacks within their organization and having to understand what that looks like. So we've got to move so fast. Yeah, it's interesting.
So if we're moving fast, let's look into the future. We've got our crystal ball. So let's forward, say, to if 2030. It's only 5 years ago, eh? I know it sounds like it shouldn't be, but it is. What do you think people will be learning then? And something that we're not even talking about now. Have you got any insights on that?
No idea. No, I'm kidding. Well,
Good. How to write a book in one day?
so like we know that like 25% of skills have changed in any given job since 2015. And by 2030, that'll be 70% of skills will have changed in any given job. So I think people need to really reflect on maybe what are the skills that have changed in their current job since 2015? What have they had to learn or unlearn? And then what could that look like by 2030? But I don't think, you know, I joke about what Billy, my son, will be doing in 2030. And I hand on heart believe there'll be jobs that we didn't even know exist. So I don't think we can be as prescriptive as saying what those skills will be. But I would say that the human skills will always be at the forefront of where people should continue to focus.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I was talking to someone yesterday and I said, like, you know, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, it's such a part of our lives now. And ChatGPT launched in 2022. Right, that's it's like literally. I can remember it was like, what's this AI thing? I remember like the first iPhone, and I was like, what's the point in that? Like, why would you need apps?
I was like, why would you wear those weird alien earbuds when I've got my sexy cord here that's all like caught up and I'm having to hold my phone up here? And then suddenly I'm wearing the earpods and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's so much easier. Yeah, but I completely agree with the future of work is that you've got to just keep it moving forward. There's no one, I believe, you can't know what's going to happen. The roles, I mean, yeah, as you said, the roles of today didn't exist 1 year ago, 2 years ago. Prompt engineers,
Yeah.
like, you know, so it is crazy. I just think, you know, if it was my advice to people, is like, just keep learning, keep an open mind.
Wow.
You just can't look backwards.
No, and honestly, like I try and think of something every day I can use AI for. You know, I've called my chat GPT Emma and we chat daily about random things. I've got friends using it for psychology. I've got, you know, it's, I think just try and do something. And I'll say to Billy, I haven't done my thing on AI today. What should we do together? Just to remind me to just do something every day and just to be really curious.
So the chat GBT is called Emma. So is that someone you actually speak to or you just write to?
Speak to Emma. You've got a lovely English calming voice. She answers all of my questions. Hello.
Hello, Georgina.
Emma.
And is that unlike, I'm just interested, is that unlike Google or like...
That's GPT. Yeah.
Is it? And you can get it just through your laptop?
Yeah, I know it's through my phone. I could go to the voice bit, hold it down, and Emma says, what do you need today? And I say, hi, Emma, I'd really love to.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so I think, I mean, that's one great piece of advice. Like, I think that's something I need to do more with my kids of like what we can look at our whole process, because our just daily lives, what we can do with ChatGPT or even AI as much as possible. I was speaking to a friend this week, and he was saying he was in LA and he was watching the automated robots delivering pizza, and they like look like a little dog, and they just drive across the road. They stop by the lights and wait, and then they go across, and of course it stays hot or cold or whatever, and just moves along, and it goes to your house. You know, we've got driverless cars now. I mean, they said we'd be in the Jetsons in 2000, but now it's actually coming true, I think, from that perspective.
So the one thing I will say around all of this like talk around AI, and particularly when I think of the younger generations, I'm a shocker for it as well. I cannot go like 5 minutes without having a podcast or something in my ears. I think I need to become better at it, but it's so important to have silence, whether it's a walk, whether it's sitting with your own thoughts, because I think we've lost that ability. And I think the best creative thoughts, the best thinking happens when people can give themselves that space to go for a walk without a podcast, to walk, you know, just big silence. And I'm saying that because I'm really bad at it, and I'm just trying to remind myself to like get better at it.
Yeah, because sometimes it can actually make you a little bit more confused because there's so much information. right? Like which podcast should I listen to? Oh no, I jump to listen to Spotify. So one thing that I do is if I am doing a run and so forth, I don't wear earphones. It's like it's where my brain will work, and that's when you often come up and go, "Oh, I can solve that problem."
Exactly. Yeah.
And I noticed it. We were in Nicoya, just been on the beach and stuff, but also not thinking about anything. Like, when you surf or snowboard, you're just thinking about that rather than many other things. So I think, the inspiration is there. So I think what I'm taking away is, yes, embrace AI, embrace technology, but keep the human and give yourself some human space. But challenge yourself to keep on learning around the platforms. And, if if you're a business leader out there, I want to know more about how to learn, please reach out to Georgina, I suppose. And then LinkedIn Learning's a lot to know about it. But I do think, trying to keep up with technology is virtually impossible. And I think it's okay not to, but it's good to just understand it.
Right. Just
Understand that perspective. So when will the book be out, Georgina? When can my listeners get a copy of? I don't know what the name is. So is it? Is there a name?
There is, but I'll inform the group when when there's more to give.
Okay. We'll be waiting with bated breath and hungry eyes to read the amazing book. But look, from my perspective, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really enjoyed this episode. I think it's given some really insights and some ideas that I hadn't come across before in terms of if you're learning. So, as I said, if you're a leader out there, we've got to set the standard of how we learn. Keep your organization learning, because if you don't, I think we'll fall behind. But also embrace it for your families and understand it's not just work-based learning you can do on some of these skills platforms, right? And I suppose one of the hardest things with Georgina is for the skills platforms to keep up with the skills.
I mean, we do that. We're fine. We've got the second largest studio outside of Hollywood for LinkedIn Learning and produce over 50 courses a week. So that's, I think, our kind of USP is that we've got the people to produce the courses to keep up with the skills, which is great.
That's what you need. I suppose if people listen to this today and they want to speak to you about LinkedIn Learning, how do they reach out and contact you?
LinkedIn.com, find me, connect, drop me a note, and happy to respond. I do actually check them regularly.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Georgina, for joining us today on Work Right with Rich. It's been a pleasure. Best way to spend a Friday afternoon before a glass of rosé. And I hope you have a most fantastic weekend. Thank you very much.